Rama Rama Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 8, the character of Bharat Maharaj, text 13. Patishu cha mukta bhavena tatra tatra. Batishu cha mukta bhavena tatra tatra vishaktamati pranaya vara hridaya karpanyat skande no dvahati evam utsanga urasi chadaya palaya mutam paramam avappa. Patishu, on the forest path, cha, also, mukta bhavena, by the childish behavior of the deer, tatra tatra, here and there, vishaktamati, whose mind was too much attracted, pranaya, with love, bara, loaded, hridaya, whose heart, karpanya, because of affection and love, skandena, by the shoulder, udvahati, carries, evam, in this way, utsange, sometimes on the lap, urasi, on the chest while sleeping, cha, also, adaya, keeping, upalaya layam, upalalayam, fondling, mudam, pleasure, paramam, very great, avapa, he felt. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharat due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharat would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or, when sleeping, on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Listen to me. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharat due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharat would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or when sleeping on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Purport. Maharaj Bharat left his home, wife, children, kingdom, and everything else to advance his spiritual life in the forest. But again, he fell victim to material affection due to his attachment to an insignificant pet deer. What, then, was the use of his renouncing his family? One who is serious in advancing his spiritual life should be very cautious not to become attached to anything but Krishna. Sometimes, in order to preach, we have to accept many material activities, but we should remember that everything is for Krishna. If we remember this, there is no chance of our being victimized by material activities. Patishu cha mukta bhadina tattva tattva nishaktamati pralaya vara hridaya karpanaya skandeno dvahati evam samvaridasam chadaya parayan chatta yogaram mudam paramam avapa. When entering the forest, the animal would appear very attractive to Maharaj Bharat due to its childish behavior. Maharaj Bharat would even take the deer on his shoulders and carry it due to affection. His heart was so filled with great love for the deer that he would sometimes keep it on his lap or, when sleeping, on his chest. In this way, he felt great pleasure in fondling the animal. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopisam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadayam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanavitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Takapate Gopesha Gopikanta Radhakanta Namoste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sukta Devi Pranamani Vanchakalpatascha Krita Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So, in this chapter, the character of Bharat Maharaj has been described. Bharat Maharaj was a very elevated soul, very noble personality. He was actually the son of Lord Rishabdev, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After him, India is actually named as Bharatvarsha. He came in the line from Priyavrata, who was the son of Swayambhu Manu. So this narration actually takes place in another juga, not in Kali. It also has been described that he was ruling, being engaged in the kingly affairs for thousands of 10,000 years. So already from there we can understand that there is another time period. According to Vedic tradition, Vedic culture, the king had many responsibilities. His first responsibility was actually to perform sacrifice for his own good, as well as also for the benefit of the people in general. Then another duty was to see that his subjects were engaged according to their propensities. In the Vedic culture, the society is divided into 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. The 4 varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. These are the categories of material engagements according to the tendency and the qualities, characters of different individuals. They are actually divided into 4 castes, 4 varnas. And then there is another division, the ashrams, which is brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. These are the spiritual divisions of society. So the king's responsibility is actually to see that all his subjects are engaged in their occupational duties according to this Varnashram Dharma system. Because if the populace is engaged, it will be to their benefit of spiritual perfection of the path leading to spiritual we can see that in Vedic times, the duty of a king was to see that his subjects are progressing on the spiritual path to perfection. And it also has been explained especially in connection to King Vina, that the duty of the king is also to see that the land is producing enough foodstuffs. Ritu Maharaj was very expert and was very much engaged in providing the different substances in order to make the land fertile so that enough foodstuff is produced for the whole populace. So the main duty of human beings is, as Rishabdev instructed his son, Tava Divyam Uttaka Jain Satam Sudyet Shasmat Brahma Sotyam Tvanam, meaning that duty of the human being is to perform austerity in order to be elevated to the divine position of being engaged in devotional service. So by this execution of the pasya, the heart is actually purified, and by being purified, we will reach a stage of Brahma Satyam, happiness everlasting, Svanantam. That is actually the meaning. And as you also can see, after being an exemplary king, Bharat Maharaj renounced the kingdom and went to the forest in order to perform sacrifices, to perform austerity. That was, that was the process which was delivered in the Vedic scriptures, that one shouldn't be engaged his whole life in material duties, occupational duties. At a certain age, one should actually retire from material life and devote his time fully to spiritual activities. That has been said happens at the age of 50, according to Vedic culture. The first years are spent in brahmacharya, about to the age of 25. Then the individual enters into grihastha life, married life. And at the age of 50, he retires. He leaves his occupational duties and he goes to a secluded place in order to engage in spiritual activities, vadas. And then when he's perfected, he actually enters the fourth state, sannyas, which means complete renunciation from any material activities. So Maharaj Bharat Maharaj also followed that way. So while withdrawing, going to the forest, he went to Bulahashashram, that is in the Himalayan mountains, and performed his activities for spiritual perfection, living a very simple life, partaking foods of fruits, roots, and herbs which he found in these forest areas. So then, while being engaged in these activities, one day, while being at the river, he saw a deer coming its way, and at the same time there was a roar of a lion close by. So the deer got so much frightened, and being pregnant actually delivered the cub, the deer cub, the doe, and speeding away out of fear left his body. So Maharaj Bharat witnessed this activity is happening and felt compassion on the doe and took charge of it. It has been said that he cared for it, nourished it, fondled with it. Feeling compassionate with the state of the doe, having lost his parent, the shelter of the parent, Maharaj Bharat, due to his saintly nature, felt compassion and felt obliged to take care of the doe. But by doing that, he more and more actually neglected his duties of spiritual practice, and more got attached to the doe. So this is actually the danger which we all experience in this material existence. It has been described in the Bhagavad Gita that Dhyayato Vishayam Sam Sangasteshu Pajayanje, by contemplating, being exposed to the sense objects, one actually develops attachment. And that from that attachment, Sangasteshu Pajayanje, Sangat Sanjayate, Kama Kama Krodha Vijayate, Krodha Bhavati Sammoha. You know, like that one step leads to the other, attachment comes, and through attention to destruction, and there it is said that krodha, anger, arises due to being heavily attached. Anger arises, and from anger, sammoha, meanings, illusion, arises. Krodha bhavati sammoha. And when sammoha smriti vibrama, and from illusion, memory gets lost. By being illusioned, we forget what we actually supposed to do. Sammaha smriti vibrama, smriti brahmasa, buddhinaso, buddhinasa vinashati. And when the memory is lost, intelligence is destroyed or vanquished. And when the intelligence is gone, we actually fall down. Intelligence is the faculty which decides or which leads us to do properly in the right way. So when we lose that intelligence, we will actually fall down from the spiritual plane, and that is what Prabhupada points out in his purport, that Bharat Maharaj actually fell down from his elevated stage. It has been described that due to the practice, austerities, and processes of devotional service which he performed while being in the forest. He actually reached up to the stage of bhava, meaning developing different devotional feelings like shivering, hair stands on end. There has been a description given in the scriptures that there are 8 different symptoms of ecstatic feelings which a devotee experienced while reaching that stage of bhava. But even having reached that very lofty, elevated stage of bhava, Bharat Maharaj still fell down. And that, Prabhupada points out, was due to overly attachment to the Guru. And why that happens, Prabhupada points out, is because of negligence in the performance of devotional service. So that means there is every chance of falling down from the spiritual path if we are not very attentive. This material nature is Daivi Maya, the divine energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's his own energy, and it is very strong. In Bhagavad Gita, it has been described that it is very, very difficult to overcome the influence of the material energy, meaning the attraction of the material world. But if one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it will be actually very easy to overcome. Because the material energy is one energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we seek shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by following his instruction, being engaged in devotional service, we will actually be protected and will be able to overcome the attraction, the onslaughts of the material energy. In one point, Prabhupada actually raises the question why or how to understand that Maharaj Bharat, even being in such a lofty position, having reached the stage of devotional feelings, ecstasies, bhava, how possibly he could be distracted and fall down again. Because it has been said that somebody engaged in the devotional service, karmani nirdahati, Jabakti Bhajan, Kintu Jabakti Bhajan, that by being engaged in devotional service, all karma has been destroyed by the execution of it. So Prabhupada makes the point that we have to understand that the deviation is due to the purposeful intention. So that means by intentionally focusing on external happenings or the attraction, surrender in that way to the attraction of the material energy, purposefully, not unintentionally, we actually diminish our spiritual power, and diminishes, also due to the negligence in performance of the process of devotional service, will actually be susceptible to the onslaught and finally fall down to the material plane again. So this was the case with Bharat Maharaj. So the understanding is that it is not really the outwardly renouncement which is the most important factor in one's spiritual life, meaning that it's not really necessary to renounce all material activities and to withdraw, go to the forest, and in that way try to perfect one's life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, citing Brahma's vision, says that this is not necessary, this is not process which is most beneficial. Stanistipam Shrutivaram Tanvan Manokir. He says that Brahma states, it's a quote by Lord Brahma, which says that just stay wherever you are, but fully engage in devotional service through mind, speech, and bodily activities, and in that way perfect your life. Prabhupada also states at another section that the real renunciation is the renunciation of seeing things connected to the spiritual, to Krishna. We have the tendency to see the objects and the material world as being separate from the Supreme Personality of God. That is actually what Maya means. The problem of our existence is that we don't see the things in relation to the Supreme Personality of God. And that is one energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead called Daivimaya. But the spiritual energy, Yogamaya, is that energy which connects everything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we have to take shelter of that energy, Yogamaya, in order to be established again in our constitutional position. It has been said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Rite Artam Yat Pratyetana Pratyeta Chatmani Tat Vidyapatnamaya Yathavashva Yathatmana. That whatever seems to be of value but is not connected to the Supreme Personality of God, know it to have no value. And the expression has been given, it's just like it's just like a reflection in darkness. So Prabhupada points out in the purport in that way that this is a very nice example. There is the absolute truth and the relative truth. And the example has been given with the light, the sun, the reflection, and the shadow. Actually, the shadow only exists in relation to the sun. If one blocks the sun, the backside of one is in shadow. So the shadow as such hasn't got any separate existence. Its only existence relies on the sun. In a similar way, the reflection, there are different artificial means, like in the material world we see the sun and the moon or electricity, which are considered to be the reflection of the original light, which comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the spiritual world, it has been described that natat vashete nashashanka nabhaka, that in the spiritual world there is no need of sunlight, moonlight or electricity. Why? Because in that sphere, in that realm, there is always light. And that light actually comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in the material world, which is by its nature dark, there is only darkness and the reflection of light, which has its cause or its source in the spiritual world. Yasya prabha prabhu churaganta koti koti shashesha vasudha mukti vinnam tat pramanishkaramanam shesham. That effulgence of the Supreme Personality of God is actually the base of all its existence. And it has been described that the sunlight and the moonlight, as well as electricity, are the reflection of that original light, which comes from the body of the Supreme Personality of God. So in that way, Prabhupada points out further that we can see that these are actually the energies. The material world is the energy, is that matter. And the living entities is also an energy of the Supreme Personality of God. And he points out, he makes that specific point that both of them are illusory in that way. Darkness, that matter, is only existence due to the absence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In a similar way, he points out also the living entities are illusory as long as they are identifying themselves with this material body. As soon as the living entity realizes that by its true nature it is actually purely spiritual, qualitatively one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it is no more illusionary. So from there we actually can understand our conditioned state. As long and until we realize our real identity, we are actually in a state of illusion. As has been pointed out, what happened to Bharat Maharaj. Being overly attached to that though was in that way the impact of illusion. He thought responsible of taking care of the bodily needs and protecting the dough, forgetting actually his spiritual routine and his spiritual duties. In that way, it also has been explained that it is very important that we understand that there is no use in trying to perfect the material conditioning, because the material conditioning, material affairs, happiness and distress are actually already given due to the law of karma by taking on a certain body. That's why the Vedic version is that the focus shouldn't be on the catering for the needs of the body, of the material aspects of our existence, but to see and try to perfect one's spiritual identity, meaning to realize what our spiritual identity is, and to engage in process which are meant to perfect our spiritual existence. And in that way, both actually, the spiritual perfection as well as the material demands will be taken care of. So, as many times, time and time again, these different examples which are given, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam, due to the lives of these highly elevated personalities, is to remind us and to show us by example what kinds of pitfalls or dangers can happen on the part of spiritual perfection, and more importantly, what are the remedies, what are the activities, the proper process we can embark on in order to be successful in the performing of our spiritual life. The main focus actually here is given that we should be very careful not to fall prey due to the attraction of the material nature, even if it's related to so lofty understandings as trying to give protection to the weak. But at the same time, due to overly attachment, if we forget our spiritual activities or getting slack in the execution of spiritual process, we actually will face some troubles, and there is a chance of fall down from the spiritual platform again to the material platform. So, I'll stop now. Thank you very much. Are there any comments? Any questions? Yes.
Because as we go through the story of Bharat Maharaj, we of course speak of attachment so strongly. And also, the whole point is that the problem with attachment is that we forget Krishna. And especially with today's translation, when you were reading, it's very funny because in my mind came the picture of a mother, and that's how the mother is absolutely obsessed with the child. So, and that, in a way, that attachment is very necessary also to do her job as a mother. But also I see it, especially with my mother, even if I'm grown up and gone, that care and that meditation is still there. So although Bharat Maharaj's story externally, let's say, is about a male, but I was also thinking of how, for a lady, she is forever quite enveloped in this attachment. So maybe if you could shed some light on that.
Well, I think the main point is to try to understand what what is the goal of renunciation and tapasya. Prabhupada sometimes quotes that verse from Nara Panisharatma. Aradita Jadaharis Tapasa Tataki Naradita Jadiharis Tata Tapasa Tataki Antar Bahir Jadi Haris Tapasa Tataki Nantar Bahir Jadi Haris Tapasa Tataki. He says that if you're engaged in devotional service, what's the use of austerity? And if you're not engaged in devotional service, what is the benefit of austerity? And if you realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead inside and outside, what is the need of austerity? And if you're not able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being inside and outside, what help will do austerity? So the main point is, it's not austerity itself or the renunciation, but it's whether we are engaged in devotional service or not, and whether we realize that the Supreme Personality is everywhere, inside and outside. So in a more practical way, we shouldn't artificially try to renounce certain things if you're not at the stage. That means that there is some importance of the relationship, even on so-called material level, meaning parents. And it is also said one should respect the parents even in Christianity. Because in one way we are owed to the parents to so many things in the material world, on the material world. So as long as until we are completely pure devotees, we shouldn't artificially neglect. In that way, it doesn't no harm. But if it's an obstacle in the execution, if it becomes an obstacle in the execution of devotional service, that is not good. Same thing here. He was overly attached, Bharat Maharaj, to that deity. Because in one way, there is nothing wrong. Actually, Bharat Maharaj felt compassion because he could understand it's a spirit soul, which now, due to circumstances, being in the body of a doe, lost all shelter. And due to compassion, he actually felt obliged to give shelter and take care. But then it went to that extent, that he neglected his spiritual duty. So that should be the focus.
Thank you very much for your lecture. You were quoting this verse of Bhagavad Gita, how we come from the stage of attachment to fall down, actually. First of all, what was that verse again?
Two verses.
Which verse?
Where is it? Three, 16, 17 or 15, 16? Two verses. Third chapter.
And I was wondering if it's always like this, because as we know, actually only if we are overly attached, these things are happening. And like that one point leads to another, right? So yeah, for me it seems to be like very strict, and probably not always these things happen after one after another. And second, how to really be able to distinguish if we're going towards this path, or if we're still at the same side in that sense.
Actually, we also have to understand the same principle is applicable to spiritual growth. By being exposed to spiritual topics, hearing about the Supreme Personality of God and worshipping the Supreme Personality of God, we actually get purified and get attracted. So it's, in one way, the same process, where our attention goes. And yet, finally, you were asking, whether it always happens, or where is the line to draw, not to fall prey. You mean like that? And there, naturally, we can't avoid. That was the thing, which was, also a little the subject matter in the previous question. We're in the material world. We have our relationships, and we can't just avoid locking ourselves up in a room, not being exposed. We are exposed. But the main point is, once again, like being exposed to these sense objects. Do we delve in them? Do we want to get joy out of them for our own? Or do we see them in connection with the Supreme Personality? Actually, it's a very simple formula, Krishna conscious means to dovetail everything with Krishna. At the present moment, we are in the material world and everything is minus Krishna. So what a devotee tries to do is just to see everything in relation to Krishna. And then it's spiritual. That is what spiritual life is, to see everything in relation to Krishna and act accordingly. Presently we act for our own, and we separate everything. Yes, like science is the best example. Even Prabhupada said, like the biggest disadvantage of modern science is that they don't even want to consider. Like if you come to them and try to explain something, pointing out that there is a superior power, they say, no, don't bring God into the picture. They want to have everything. They want to grasp everything intellectually, which we know is not possible through the senses.
was a very interesting subject, attachment, a very big word. You know, it's not a question what I want to say. Just a little. Just a little comment. The part when you say Bharat Maharaj, when he was getting ready with 50 years old to, let's say, like to go to his retirement, and it was like it's like it came to my mind. I was like, wow, what a luxury, you know. It's just in this material world, you know, for us to go to with 50 years old to our retirement is like, wow, not possible, you know, especially when we have so much responsibilities in our life, family, kids, work, and we sometimes I feel I'm in this phase in my life I'm just so tired, you know. I miss my sadhana. I would like to go back to do that, but I have the responsibility with my kids. They are still very small. Husband. I would like just to leave my job and do, you know, the other part of my life that I finished to do and I'm ready to share it. But you know, stopping is, you know, still my kids are very small. So when you say that part, you know, I was like, oh, I wish I can do that, you know. And yeah, it was just a little comment. And one matter you say, you know, the attachment to our kids. That's very true. You know, that's a big is the big let's say a big test that Krishna gives us. You know, and when I see families losing their children as a devotees, and I know a very great devotee who lost his daughter, and she was very young, but he was so exhaled when he lost her, you know, and we were like, wow, we saw him like very advanced spiritually when he lost his daughter. And when I see other people losing their children, you know, they're like in complete sufferings. So we are very grateful to have this knowledge and understand when Krishna detach us from our attachments, you know. That's
actually, maybe to come back to that point with giving up or renouncing at the age of 50, naturally we have to understand that's the Vedic culture. Unfortunately, nowadays, there is practically no Vedic culture in its pure state, you know, because that naturally would depend on the circumstances. Now we have different circumstances, you know, especially when you live in Switzerland, you have so many obligations, you know, you can't just, as you say, drop out at the age of 50. Because here you not even can just live in the forest. If you do that, police will come, you know, and lock you up. So and on top of that, the climate is not conducive to you. So now the main point is, and I think I would like to stress that, is, you know, once again, you know, it's the inner renunciation, which means to understand, you know, that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and our eternal relationship is with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we should work towards that. Naturally, being in this material body, we have responsibilities. We shouldn't neglect them. No pure devotee would do that. Still even being liberated already in that body, he makes a point to also, you know, follow the social contact in order not to destroy. And yes, we should, that's another thing, we should be confident, you know, and have full faith in the Supreme Personality of God, and being aware that He's actually detaching ourselves. That's, you know, personality of Godhead who sits in the heart as Paramatma. If he wishes and he is merciful, he will actually purify us. And then everything will be automatic. And there are so many highly advanced devotees, especially Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime, they will realize this. They will not realize this. They will family life, or Ramananda Roy, one of the most exalted contemporaries, companions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was a minister. He had a very high governmental position. Hare Krishna. So, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samadeva Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Grace Govinda ki jai.
Karma her i denne celestial circumstances they can have.
So als kleine Aufmunterung für Sie, das heisst, 57% vom Leben sind wahrscheinlich einiges länger gewesen als das Leben.
Ich glaube es nicht. Die Buch ist ja nur sehr praktisch, das ist schwedische Buch. Die ganze Gesellschaft ist so aufgebaut. Die ganze Gesellschaft ist aufgebaut im Liebsten. Die sind so drin, kannst du ganz schätzen. Und aber ist attached zu dem Umfeld, wo man sie das wird sich schlagartig
Wie es kommt, zeigt sich halt, dass es ist nicht einfach so einfach zu lösen, es ist wie Wasser umkommen ist von der heutigen Zeit.
Ja. Und da kann man Quintessenz ist ja premature is wenn du etwas künstlich vorspielst, das erste Mal ist es Frage der Zeit, ist es stricklich. Und das zweitens ist auch noch die Frage, ob es überhaupt schutzt ist. Das ist genau das, was gemeint ist, you should perform your duties and not the duty of something. Was damit gemeint ist, oder wenn wir denken, okay, wir müssen jetzt den Service machen, statt den uns zugeben und denken, dass sie der Richtige sind. Meistens basierend auf dem falschen Ego, Adoration, Distinction, Profit. Aber wir denken und sagen, das ist das. Also wir gehen von dem falschen Weg. Hast du nachher nochmal 15 Minuten Zeit?
Ja. Ich bin am ich muss gerade noch schnell schauen, ob wir wieder 1000 Firmen kurz etwas besprechen, aber wir können die Zeit wahrscheinlich anpassen. Und du bist ja da bis um 11 Uhr. Wenn wir jetzt es gibt ja am 9. Uhr. Das haben wir extra so eingerichtet, so Meetings. Wenn wir im Büro schon sitzen.
Das ist im Büro.
Ja.
Das Büro. Ja.
Do you think we can meet at you going to this class of what class did you want at 11?
Not sure, maybe, not sure. I'll see how it goes.
I wanted to ask if we can meet at 10:45.
Yeah, we don't need any soda.
Yeah, 15 minutes with me.
Okay.
The 15 steps, you know,
Yeah.
these 15 steps.
Yeah.
She liked very much.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, that's nice. Damodari, hello.
Because she was always criticizing, you know, our work life
Yeah.
and our work life balance. And then I told her, hey, I made a workshop with inner gardening and I have 50 steps to change. Did you like to read it? And she, yes, why not?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Hey.
And then I sent her the whole workshop, not only the page.
Oh, really?